Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Now, back-to-back startling revelations regarding India's state sponsorship of terrorism as well as its involvement in the assassinations and assassination plots on the foreign soil are coming forth. The Washington Post in its latest report has said, let me quote an excerpt, that the unnamed Indian government official accused by the US authorities of directing the alleged plot to murder pro-Khalistan lawyer Gurbatwant Singh Pannu on American soil is a former RAW officer named Vikram Yadav, unquote. Now, this particular report by Washington Post also says that Samant Goel, who was RAW chief at that particular time when the plot to murder Pannu was underway, was under extreme pressure to eliminate the alleged threat of the Sikh extremists overseas. Now, this particular report by Washington Post quotes the reports that have been closely held within the American government. The Post said that the US intelligence agencies have assessed that the operation targeting Pannu was approved by the RAW chief at that time, Samant Goel. Also, the Post notes India's assassination plots in the US and Canada are part of an expanding wave of aggression against dissident groups seeking protection in other countries. The report highlighted the escalating campaign of aggression by RAW against Indian diaspora worldwide. Now, reacting to this particular report by Washington Post, the White House spokesperson has come up with a statement. Let me quote that. This is a serious matter. We are taking that very, very seriously, unquote. Now, on the other side, we have seen Indian External Affairs Ministry says Washington Post story had made unwarranted and unsubstantiated imputations on a serious matter. Now, it is worth mentioning over here, back in November, the US authorities had said that an Indian government official had directed the plot in an attempted murder of Gurbatwant Singh Pannu, a Sikh separatist and dual citizen of the US and Canada. For a fact, we also know that Canada, the Canadian authorities had earlier said that it was looking into credible allegations potentially linking Indian agents to the June murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, another Sikh separatist in Vancouver suburb. This important development, as far as this particular latest report by Washington Post is concerned. Also, we have seen similar reports coming in the recent past, most specifically by The Guardian, and also that particular stance the Pakistani authorities over the recent past have been holding, and that very important presser by Pakistan's Foreign Secretary Mr. Cyrus Sajjad Qazi establishing about India's RAW's involvement and Indian authorities' involvement in the transnational murders and assassination attempts. To discuss all these, we are honored to have been joined on Skype by Lt.Gen. retired Raza Muhammad Khan. He is senior analyst and former president of the National Defense University. General Raza Khan, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Dr. Waleed Rasool, his foreign affairs expert. Dr. Rasool, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Let me begin the discussion with you, General Raza Khan. Now, this is another very important and credible media outlet. Now, this is based in the US. Earlier, we know The Guardian also came up with startling revelations as to Indian authorities' aggression, specifically in these assassinations and assassination attempts on the foreign soils, particularly vis-a-vis the US and Canada. Now, these back-to-back reports coming from the credible media outlets, what do these reports actually signify and what do these actually depict?
Okay, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I think first of all, the reports by The Guardian and now the Washington Post are actually international dossiers of the Indian governments and particularly their intelligence agencies' crimes. And I hope that both the UK government, the Canadian government, and even the US government should now very clearly state the responses, to this kind of state-sponsored terrorism. Of course, you made a mention of the statement by the White House, and you said what they had to say. They also said that India is an important strategic ally on the same questions, and it asked the questioner that the specifics of the inquiry ordered by the U.S. governments are still unknown, and that the U.S. Department of Justice is working on it. I think we fail to understand that if Modi is himself accepting and taking political credit of all these international assassinations in his election campaigns, and his defense minister is also very clearly accepting this, so that their image of the so-called chowkidars of India is sold to the voters, then I don't know what additional evidence do these governments require, and they should now really be talking of sanctions against the Indian government officials, all those who are involved in it. They also need to, I think, contact, particularly, the people who were killed or murdered. I'm talking of the Sikh communities, or persons who were both citizens of the United States and Canada. They should be the ones who going to the International Criminal Court based on this very evidence against Raw and Modi. Probably, the modus operandi of these murders through contractors who were hired for murder, and who were paid laundered money using the soil of multiple countries, need to be now picked up by the FATF. The FATF needs to take suo moto notice of all these events. And unless this is done, I think India will continue whatever they have been doing.
Okay, so what's the significance of this particular name? This has been revealed for the first time. Already the US authorities were of the view that it is the involvement of an officer associated with Raw. Now this particular name has been revealed in this particular report by Washington Post. The name of the officer is Vikram Yadav. Now the revelation of this particular name, what does that mean? What sort of a weight that particular thing holds?
Well, I think a few weeks back, there was a US delegation, a high-powered US delegation who visited India and asked the Indian government about the progress of the inquiry. And I'm sure they raised all these issues with them. And they did not receive any satisfactory report from the Indian government. Therefore, I think it is now for the US government to make their own decisions. And unfortunately, whether it was the Guardian report or the Washington Post report, when you look at the bottom paragraphs there, they have not clearly condemned the government of India or Modi. And they have also very clearly mentioned that all these reports are actually helpful to Modi in getting more votes, which means that they are accepting and endorsing the theory that Modi is using international murders for political gains, and they have not either recommended to their government or they have not given any op-ed sort of opinion by saying how should the government of the United States respond to that. I wish they had added their recommended response to that. And as I said earlier, I think it is high time that India is warned at least for all these, on the basis of all this evidence, and the people who were actually murdered and killed all over the world, including those in Pakistan. I think they could collectively take all this evidence to, as I would repeat, to the International Criminal Court, and the governments of these countries must actually support these requests so that the truth comes out. And unless this is done, I think the Indian government would try and absolve their own officials and themselves from all these allegations.
Right, let me proceed towards Dr. Rasool. Dr. Rasool, now these back reports coming from some of the credible international media outlets, earlier the Guardian and now the Washington Post, now the revelation of that particular name of that officer that was involved in this particular assassination attempt on Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. Now, firstly, what does that actually signify? There is another important mention of a point by General Raza Khan. Perhaps this particular thing might be helping Modi getting some kind of advantage at home. What's your understanding?
Actually, if you go a little bit through the genesis of the Indian policy, Vikram Sood's book, he was ex-RAW chief, Unending Wars, mentions the deception is an order of the RAW, and RAW has been involved in so many extrajudicial killings which is mentioned in RAW chief's book. And secondly, when you are concealing something, you can conceal it once, twice, but not for always. This is now order. Number three, which is very important, that when you are acting beyond your borders, you are trying to break the sovereignty of other nation, and it is the crime, it is the aggression as per Chapter 7 of the UN. So now there are the other global partners, particularly now the same is the situation with the Canada and USA. Now I think it is very important at this crucial time to talk about all those crimes which has been committed by India in various intervals of time, and this is the test case. Now we have enough evidence to go to international ICC taking this case. Same was the case of the Kulbhushan, which is an another. Though when you are connecting the dots, these dots of the various revelations by the international media, and Guardian is one of the papers, and Washington Post's today's column, it gives clear prima facie evidence about the criminal activities of the state as an state actor of the India. So this is his policy, and this policy needs to be unveiled at different, at multi levels. That is one, diplomatic level, and since the case is the same with Pakistan and also with the Canada and the America and the other enemy in the Holland is also one of the actor of these cases, one of the effective of these cases, but they have been silent for the so time. But Pakistan, as far as the Pakistan is concerned, so Pakistan is directly victim because we have a long border with the India. So in the future, how Pakistani soil is used by Indian terrorism should be a new narrative internationally. So these are the evidences which we need to put in international media, also on the ISIS.
Okay, so based on these back-to-back reports coming in various sections of media, now ideally what should be the response or the reaction on the part of the concerned authorities, specifically when you talk about the kind of reaction that came when Canadian Prime Minister shared on the floor of the House about the credible allegations linking Indian agents in the murder of that Canadian citizen on the Canadian soil. Do you see any sort of similarity as far as the reaction from the US authorities regarding this particular assassination attempt is concerned?
But I don't think that the reaction, there is an equal reaction by US and Canada so far. We need to do much about it. we have to develop those case studies also and link them with the American and the Canadian experience. That is the cases which in backed by India in Pakistani soil. So until and unless we will not develop the entire case studies by the Indian external involvement beyond their homeland, we will not move concrete on the concrete grounds forward. But we have now enough evidence because other states have the same point of view about the Indian foreign involvement backed by the state, because India will try to brush that it is not the state involvement, rather it is an individual. Now evidences are enough that it is we have to develop this case. Now it is not the individual's case, but the India as a state actor is involved in behind these cases.
Right.
That is one very, very important.
Right. General Raza Khan, you already talked about the United States of America on one side trying to be the strategic ally as far as its relationship with India is concerned, considering it that one. Also regarding this particular assassination attempt, taking it very seriously by trying to weigh this particular equation from both sides and trying to analyze what are the possible options for the United States authorities or the administration in place at this particular point in time, especially during the election year, what possible actions they can actually take in order to warn India that there could be some serious repercussions for its approach that it is carrying out with.
There are tangible, actionable actions by the United States, as I mentioned, putting sanctions or travel bans on Modi, which were already imposed, earlier before he became the Prime Minister, and when he had killed more than 2,000 Muslims in Gujarat. I think unless those kinds of actions are taken, nobody is going to take their statements seriously. When they say that, well, we are taking the incident seriously, so they have to actually back up these statements with their actions, and so far, I think we do not see any kind of actions against India. I think their policy of looking the other way for such kind of Indians, state-sponsored terrorism are likely to continue, which is going to be very, very unfortunate. And I would say once again that the evidence that is available now must be used by all those who are affected by them. Pakistan is very much affected by it. We are not talking about going or taking this case to the International Court of Justice. No, we are talking about taking all this evidence to the International Criminal Court. We do not know, what will be the outcome of that. But I think if we do that, then I think the people, the families of all those people who are threatened or whose loved ones have been murdered by the Indian governments, they would certainly be partners in that kind of activity. And that is the least, that the people of the United States would expect from their own government, that if a foreign government, attempts to kill their own citizens, then why have they kept quiet on it for such a long time, and they're doing nothing about it. Compare this, to other countries, whether, it was Pakistan or Iran or, any other Middle Eastern countries. If there were attempts, by any other country to assassinate or murder US citizens, and that too through the state machinery, I think the response there would have been very severe, and it would have been immediate and prompt. But unfortunately, no such response is coming out from the United States, or for that matter, other countries where these attacks were carried out. So I think the media and the people of these countries have to actually now convince their governments to take actually practical steps to make sure that these attacks stop and they do not happen again, whether it is in their countries or whether it is in Pakistan or any other country.
Raza Khan, is there any sort of a possibility in any sort of scenario, this point has already been discussed in your earlier take, any sort of a scenario, any possibility as to any sort of advantage Prime Minister Modi might be getting with the publication of these reports in this election that is already underway in India?
I am sure that he's getting tremendous advantage, and there is a strong probability that both these reports may have been actually willfully commissioned by some elements of the Modi government, and their timings so coordinated that he gets electoral advantage from that.
So for the awareness of the general public, how the publication, if they've been commissioned from some within the ranks of Bharatiya Janata Party, how are they going to give that particular advantage to Bharatiya Janata Party and subsequently Prime Minister Narendra Modi in getting advantage as far as the outcome of the election is concerned? I think we have lost the connection with General Raza Khan. Dr. Rasool, what's your understanding? Is there any likelihood of any advantage being taken by the Bharatiya Janata Party?
In the agenda setting of the media framing and priming is the component when you are building the narrative, and in narrative building, the BJP and and her team is having the huge experience as we have witnessed it in 2018 and 2018 elections and also in 2014 elections. The Indians who are the present government BJP regime is promoting the narrative "Gus ke marunga," and you know that they have taken already the huge dividend when they attacked the sovereignty of the Pakistan, and they in the Balakot, and then they got the dividend in the 2018 elections. Same scenario.
But the kind of repercussions, the kind of response Pakistani side gave to them in that particular misadventure, didn't that actually bring the bad name to what the approach of Indian authorities at that particular time and over which they were trying to take the advantage?
Actually, there are two things. One is the tactical advantage immediately because elections were going on, and then is the strategic one. Definitely there was
pilot,
strong
pilot was caught
strong
by
resentment.
So doesn't that particular thing go against that particular narrative that is being tried by that particular quarter to be built among that particular voters?
But definitely you have to see how media is manipulating the certain things. Actually, how much hype or how much hype you are giving to the particular section of the same news in the local media and the press media, and you have promoted one section of the same news in the social media, huge hallmark of the media, and print and the electronic media, because when your goal is to take the dividend from the particular news tactically immediately in the elections, and they try to conceal that part of the news when they were given the huge rebuttal by Pakistan Armed Forces and the Pakistan Air Force. But what they convey to the audience and to the emotional audience which voted in favor of the BJP, they gave only one side, which we call the on frame of the news to the, and that was consumed by the majority of the Indians. So this is the difference why one part was not given the promotion and another was promoted at the huge level. So they take the dividend.
Okay, so what about the implications when you talk about the Indian diaspora worldwide? Not all the people are dissidents, not all the people are claiming for right to self-determination living abroad. Keeping, for an instance, this particular movement, Six for Justice and the Khalistan referendums that happen worldwide. Now, what about the rest of the diaspora? For example, when there is involvement of Indian agents that have been hired by the government for assassinations on the foreign soils, Now, during the course of investigation and trying to pick up where these things are actually being originating from, right? The investigating authorities in those foreign countries will definitely have to go in depth, right? In that particular scenario, when that investigation is going on, don't you think there happens to be an implication for those diaspora who are residing in the foreign countries of India that they could be scrutinized during that investigation also?
Typically, everything there is in every scenario, when you are carrying the scenario analysis to see what are its merits and demerits. Definitely, but you have to think the what is the immediate tactical objective of the BJP government when elections are going on. But as far as the diaspora of India is concerned, Indian focus, particularly the present BJP focuses solely the
domestic affairs.
and it is domestic affairs.
So they don't consider ruling out any sort of implications for the diaspora worldwide?
You see, BJP policy has been remained that when they acted against the freedom fighters, but where is the frustration? Frustration is India was thinking, or Indian agencies have reported that we have killed an entire resistance in the Punjab. Now, when the peaceful resistance outside the Indian soil in Canada, in England, have emerged as a huge political movement. So, this was the double barrel assault. One, to create the havoc that even if you will raise the right to self-determination movement outside our file, we are capable to act. And same was the message, the BJP government is the only power who can act beyond its soil, who have the capacity. And the same capacity was tried, BJP tried to take the dividend out of that capacity. So, this double barrel assault was well calculated strategic policy of the BJP. So, they can bank in the vote.
So, when we talk about its implications on the state to state relations,
yeah,
especially with the major powers in the world,
definitely,
especially in the Western world. Okay, so you got the mileage and the advantage locally, domestically, at home. The kind of slogan that you already mentioned was used, that "Ghus ke marunge," roughly translated that I'll target within your own territory.
Yeah.
Now, what about the Western nations? I mean, the impact on that bilateral relationship when the Western countries are trying to consider India as a strategic ally.
Actually, Indian policy makers, particularly the BJP, is vulnerable in certain things. For example, they think that we are now the main actor of the South Asia, and America is given us the role in the South Asian affairs. So, it is the proper time if we have to do something unfair, means this is the proper time, and they are trying to take advantage in due course, because international affairs is not static, it is dynamic, it keeps changing. Definitely it has some international implications, but when you are trying to just focus of your own interest, that is solely the BJP interest, they have to return third time in the power, then she never cares where state interests are. It is totally BJP's internal affairs, and her focus is immediately the coming elections, so they may.
So, would you consider it short-sightedness?
Yes, you can say a myopia. Yes, a myopic approach.
Right. Now we are joined by another participant. Dr. Awais bin Wasi is Indian Affairs expert. Dr. Awais, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Dr. Awais, now these back-to-back revelations in some of the credible media outlets worldwide regarding Indian authorities' involvement in the assassination attempts on the foreign soils. We are already discussing, is there any sort of a scenario that BJP and Prime Minister Narendra Modi might be getting any sort of advantage as far as the outcome of the elections, which are underway already in India, might be getting after the publication of these reports?
Thank you so much, Jawad sir, for having me on a very important subject that you are discussing. Earlier when these elections started, so some scholars and analysts, they were of the view that there is no Pakistan factor in the election campaign, But now we can see that when one phase is over, and in the second phase, we can see that Pakistan factor is very much into this election campaign and in the next phases of elections. And this mention of Pakistan, it seems that it plays a important role to have votes for BJP. Recently, you must have come across a statement by Defense Minister Rajnath Singh that was a very provocative statement that he made, in which he categorically threatened Pakistan to enter and kill suspects or terrorists, whatever they call. So by this statement in the middle of the elections, you can understand that Pakistan factor is very much there, and they are trying to exploit it to get maximum votes. Hatred and hate campaign that was already underway, but by the inclusion of this Pakistan factor, I think that they try to sell it into the Hindi belt and the northern belt to have the maximum number of votes.
Right. Dr. Owais, when we talk about the reaction that earlier came from Canada when Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on the floor of the House said they had credible evidence regarding Indian agents' involvement in the murder of Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Did you see similar sort of reaction coming from the US authorities or not?
First of all, we need to understand that the context and this India's extraterritorial or exporting this phenomenon of terrorism is not, the kind of, incidents out of the blue, but there is a consistent pattern in that policy that has been confirmed by some Indian officials also, that has been cited by the investigative report carried in The Guardian. So the response by the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was very categorical, and he mentioned that there are established links between Indian state-sponsored individuals or the agents who orchestrated and planned and executed that attack in Canada against that Canadian citizen, that Sikh leader. So, but the similar response we could not have by the U.S. administration, although there is concern about that thwarted plot or attempt to kill a U.S. citizen. But such a categorical and clear statement we could not have from the U.S. administration that speaks volumes of their double standard. That on the one hand, that they talk about the human rights and peace and harmony and all these things, but when it comes to India, their stance and their position unfortunately does not seem in line with the claims that the United States is making. However, I think that United States should have made responsible comments, or it should try to stop India from perpetrating such crimes, because if it continues extraterritorially or within India, it could lead to a further escalation. So I think that should have been taken up by the U.S. administration, but unfortunately we could not have such kind of clear, categorical remark by the U.S. authorities.
Right. Dr. Vasi, when we talk about, there's a statement that has come from the White House spokesperson after the publication of this report by the Washington Post, that this is a serious matter. We are taking it very, very seriously. We are going to continue to raise our concerns. Well, looking at the tone of this statement, what's your understanding? That we are going to raise our concerns. It means we don't foresee any sort of a concrete action as far as U.S. authorities are concerned.
Yes, this half-hearted, statement or lacking any conviction in that statement very clearly indicates that it also indicates that how serious U.S. administration is for taking up, action against those operatives sponsored by Indian state. So I think that this statement is shaky. It doesn't say anything as far as taking concrete action against those people who were involved in the killings of the U.S. citizens. So it's very shaky, and it's not very tangible in terms of taking concrete steps against those who orchestrated these attacks.
So if it's not tangible and no concrete steps of being foreseen as far as the US authorities' action against Indian elements who are involved in these heinous acts, isn't it going to embolden Indian authorities and the associated elements further in future?
Of course, this is very unfortunate that for geopolitical expediencies, for the stopping or countervailing rise of China and to advance their global interest, especially in our region, in South Asia, in Asia Pacific, in Central Asia. So I think that those concerns they overshadow U.S. claims, they overshadow U.S. stated policies. So U.S. should try to create harmony which it professes and which it practices. And these geopolitical experiences should not overpower their stated or professed claims, because this is not just a contradiction, because it could lead to some conflagration, or some conflicts could be escalated in the region because of that. So I think that it does have serious implications against the peace of the world, the peace of the region, because taking this, this soft stance or this shaky stance further embolden India to take, steps against neighboring countries, which India unfortunately has been doing for quite some time. And the case against Pakistan, this has not been reported by any Pakistani newspaper which could be termed as a propagandized discourse. It has been carried by an international credible paper in which it has been clearly mentioned that 20 individuals, they have been murdered. If there had been some information within Indian administration, there is a diplomatic channel between the two countries. So that should have been communicated to Pakistan through diplomatic channel. So breaching sovereignty and threatening country and taking out individuals from its soil, I think that these things have serious implications. When both the countries, they are nuclear powers, they have nuclear weapons. So keeping this context in view, such kind of brazenness and such kind of irresponsible conduct by a country which claims to be the largest democracy, I think it could lead to some serious escalation. It must be stopped by the country.
Right. Dr. Basi, one last point. When we talk about if Americans make up their mind in order to take some sort of a concrete action against the elements involved in such heinous acts, the number of recommendations already made during the discussion by Lieutenant Retired General Raza Khan, including taking the victims of these crimes should be taking collectively this particular case to International Criminal Court. Also, the United States of America in particular should consider imposing sanctions. And also, when we talk about FATF, he has also suggested that unfortunately we have lost the contact with Dr. Owais bin Owasi. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Owasi. Dr. Rasool, now the options. Let's start firstly with the sanctions, the possibility of that.
Life, liberty and property is a UDHR basic human fundamental of the UN. When you are acting extrajudicial terrorism, it is a severe crime as per international law is concerned, and also chapter 6 of the UN Charter, because it is an act of aggression. Number two, when you are talking about the International Criminal Court, definitely there is a scope, but again I have already told that we need to develop the case histories, and we have to put entire case histories in one basket. And number three, you need the diplomatic drive at multi fronts, and in which you need support of Canada and the USA. But definitely again, there is a catalyst, there is a barrier, that is geoeconomic, geostrategic and geopolitical. Definitely you have to consider the relationship between USA and India in the consideration, because how and how far US will go. There is a lukewarm, this is a lukewarm response so far by the Americans as far as the quantum of crime is concerned in this extrajudicial terrorism. But again, we have to be very much cautious when we are lobbying internationally. We have to develop, because there is no iota of doubt in it that there is a clear prima facie case and evidences are in our hands. So it is enough to push the case in International Criminal Court. And thirdly, when you are talking about the geopolitical setup internationally, these are the implications India has to face, because Indian face is now unveiled, because crimes are now open, and it is not the crime only the crime against the Indian soil, but also the Canadian, the American soil. Now how America and Canada as a power, particularly the America, the mega power of the globe, having the responsibility of the peace and the security in the region when two nuclear powers are concerned in Indo-Pakistan context, how they will take it seriously. But there should be a clear warning in future, which I was expecting from the State Department of the USA, that what sort of action they are taking. Is there any diplomatic move? We have not seen so far in these cases between India and the USA. But as far as the Canada have taken the clear stance, but I don't think that there was the clear backing in the strategic setting by America in favor of the Canada. But what sort of the role Pakistan and Islamabad can play at the diplomatic level is the crucial one.
Dr. Waleed Rasool, Foreign Affairs expert, thank you very much for joining us in the studio tonight. We really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.